Burlesque Stripped Down, episode number 44. Welcome back, my friends. This is Velvet Eau Claire. Of course, as always, I am your guide through all of the secrets. You know, all these behind-the-scenes secrets, the saucy secrets, sexy secrets, and very often less than sexy secrets of us, the real people behind the tassels. I am very excited to be back with you today. This is actually a very, very special episode because I am recording this live from a certain conference called Sex Down South, where I am just learning so much. I'm interviewing so many people. I'm talking to so many people about burlesque, about sexuality, and it has just been a fantastic time so far. Now, I will be doing an episode later this week once I get home and have a chance to kind of decompress and figure out, just kind of take stock of everything that I have learned and that I have absorbed and the people that I've met and all those good things. So definitely keep an eye out for that, where I kind of do a recap of this convention, Sex Down South, because even just so far, it is just, it's mind-blowing already. I have a feeling I'll have a nice conference hangover when I get back from the conference. So, but I did want to go ahead and record a quick episode and say hello to you all from Atlanta and just give you a couple announcements because I have some things I want to, first off, I want to say that obviously this is kind of breaking a short hiatus that we went on after Kyla's episode I think we published that at the end of August. And since then, it's been a bit of a hiatus. September was basically a really just busy and hectic month for me. I actually moved twice during that 1 month. I also went to one other conference, and now I have this one as well. So it has just been a whirlwind. And unfortunately, this podcast, of course, is an unpaid volunteer endeavor on my part. So it unfortunately did end up taking a back seat. But I am really excited because what I have to announce today is that this is actually going to kind of kick off. I guess it's season 3. I didn't really intend to do seasons, but it's kind of what it is. And this season is going to be the season O sex. That's right. We are going to be talking all about sex and sexuality and how those things relate to us as burlesque and other creative performers. And so I'm really excited. This was actually kind of initiated when I first found out about Sex Down South, the conference that I'm at, and decided that it was somewhere that I wanted to go and kind of start making some of those correlations. So all throughout this season of Burlesque Stripped Down, we are going to be talking about sex, about how it relates to us in our personal lives, how it relates to us as performers, as entrepreneurs, as human beings, and just really kind of delve into those issues, right? So we may not be doing quite as much that's directly performance related, you know, the nice glitter tips that we've gotten in the past and things like that. We are going to be focusing a little bit more on some of the internal struggles, the internal things that we have, and of course, a lot of the fun. I mean, I have already, don't get me wrong, I have some great takeaways from this conference on some real practical sex things, if that's what you're into as well. So no worries there, but I just thought it would be really, really fun to kind of delve in to this aspect of it. So this is going to be the season O sex. I cannot really tell you how long this season is going to go for. I'm thinking probably around till the end of the year, a couple months worth, but I really just don't know, because here's the other thing that I've kind of realized during my short hiatus is that, well, let me put it this way. I finished a book recently from a woman named Gretchen Rubin, who I actually got to meet at Podcast Movement when I went there back earlier this summer. And Gretchen Rubin wrote a book called Better Than Before. And in this book, I'll give you a brief overview. She basically lays out 4 different personality types, specifically when it comes to creating and maintaining habits, right? So you have the obliger, you have the upholder, you have the questioner, and you have the rebel. And we all kind of fit in. Gretchen asserts that we fit into one of those personality types, and it kind of defines how we should approach making and keeping commitments and habits. Me personally, as I've gone through this, initially when I first looked at it, I was like, I am 100% an obliger. I like to please other people. I will do things if I feel that there is some sort of external accountability. It's one of the reasons that I've always appreciated so much when I get feedback from you all out there, because the instant that I know that someone is really, really listening, it gives me more motivation to actually keep going with this podcast, right? And that still holds true. However, the more I've thought about it in the last few weeks, months, since I've, been working through the book, I think there's a lot of rebel tendencies inside of me as well. And so, I guess I didn't really explain what they are, but an obliger is someone who, again, needs that kind of external accountability, who likes to oblige, right? Who basically, does really well with accountability buddies, who does really well with like challenges where they have to report in, things like that. Briefly, an upholder does well with internal motivation, right? So those kind of keeping that stretch going from themselves. Once they make a commitment to themselves, they're able to uphold that pretty well. And a questioner will do things as long as they see the logical purpose behind it, right? They'll question all of the reasons behind why they should do something. But once they've got that logical reason, then they're more than willing to do it. And then there's the rebel, who basically just doesn't like rules, kind of like a true rebel, right? Doesn't like to have to do something, doesn't like that feeling. And the more I started to think about it, especially recently, the more I've realized that I think I'm a rebel at heart, but I've picked up some obliger tendencies in order to function in the world. And so I do typically do well with some external accountability. However, I often resent it if it's something that I don't want to do. I really hate routines. Which is why it's been such a struggle to get real for a second. It's been a struggle for me as an online entrepreneur and as someone creating this podcast, because I don't like to feel bogged down by those things. So anyway, all of that to say that I'm still kind of working on figuring out my own workflow, my own way of doing things. And so I've decided what I need right now is to kind of give myself a few less rules. I'm going to go against a bunch of the advice that all the podcast helpers that are out there give you, which is consistency, which is having a schedule, all of these things. And I need to listen to myself right now. So I am still going to be posting episodes. Don't worry. I mean, I am not giving up on this podcast because I think it is a great thing. I hope that you are getting things out of this. However, I am no longer going to commit to doing 2 episodes per week. First of all, that's just a lot of work for someone who is also hustling to make ends meet and to get my finances in shape. So I can no longer commit to doing 2 episodes per week. I will be doing at least 1 episode per week throughout this season. I'd like to add in a second episode per week when it's possible, but I can't quite commit to that. So be on the lookout for at least 1 episode per week, hopefully by Mondays. But again, I'm just going to give myself a little bit of grace. As you know, for those of you listening, I started to do that a few months ago when I started doing kind of the second episode on like Thursday-ish, right? It was usually more on the weekend. But I have just decided to kind of take a step back a little bit and really just listen to what inspires me, because I don't want this podcast to feel like a chore. I want to feel inspired to do it. We're going to be doing mostly interviews, especially throughout this season of Sex here, because I've been making a lot of contacts here at this conference and a lot of people that I would love to bring on the podcast. A few burlesque performers, but a lot of just other sexuality experts and educators and things like that to kind of discuss and delve in to some of these issues. So look for a lot of interviews, but there also may be some solo casts where I just feel the need to get on and talk to you about some stuff. Please do, throughout this whole transition or this whole new phase or whatever it is, please feel free to give me any feedback on what you think. If you would like to go back to a more consistent schedule, like I said, I have some of those obliger tendencies. So once I hear more from you, then perhaps it will kind of give me that motivation to really stick to a schedule. So anyway, look for a little bit less frequent once per week throughout the season of Sex here. But I am still so excited to get this season started. As I mentioned, I've got several really, really important topics that I want to cover. My next announcement does kind of build off of that a little bit, and that is that I am actually launching a Patreon page for this podcast. If you're not familiar with Patreon, it is a wonderful, if we're all artists, if you're an artist listening to this podcast, you should absolutely check it out for yourself, because it's a great crowdfunding platform where people can actually go to support you if they love the content, if they love what you're doing, but they can't they can't always buy tickets to your shows because they're overseas, or they can't help you put on a show because they don't have those resources, or whatever the case may be. They can go to patreon.com and they can sign up they can pledge to support you. And it's usually done on a monthly basis. Some people do it by created item, right? So a painter might do like X amount per painting that they create. But you can go there and create this patron page where people can go and support you and donate whatever they can, all the way from $1 up to, hundreds of dollars or whatever it is, but $1 per month even. And so I'm launching one for this podcast because, as I mentioned, it has been on a volunteer basis so far, which is fine. I do love it, but I would love to start making some improvements as well. Get a better microphone, be able to help out with the hosting services that I pay every month. So if you're interested, if you like what Burlesque Stripped Down is doing, what I'm doing with the podcast, and you'd like to help create more of it and more of a community around it, head on over to burlesquestrippeddown.com/support, SUPPORT, and you'll be taken then over to the Patreon page where you can pledge to support. It works very similar. If you're familiar with Kickstarter, it has a very similar approach where there are different levels of support. So depending on how much you'd like to support every month, there are different rewards that I've created for that. And they include everything from a personal message from me to a shout out on the podcast to membership in a private Facebook group that we're going to be creating and really building up along with some of the guests. So that'll be kind of a nice little bonus as well. Some of the previous guests, big stars and all that from Burlesque, will be in this group as well. So we can have some real good, more individual one-on-one conversation, all sorts of different things. And as a special little bonus, because I am working to kind of build up our community and this podcast, anyone who pledges, who becomes a patron before the end of the year, this is 2016, so before the end of 2016, will also be featured as a founding member of the Burlesque Stripped Down kind of community. So you'll get a very special graphic. Eventually there'll be some merchandise, some exclusive merchandise only for founding members. And, like I said, a special shout out from me. So if you're interested in being a founding member of this community and the podcast and the Patreon page, head on over to burlesquestrippeddown.com/support. Any little bit helps, and I really appreciate it. It helps me to know that you are loving what I'm putting out there and that you want me to keep going with it. So that's an easy way to support me. If you can't do the financially, I totally understand. As always, I love to get your emails at least. Like, that is absolutely better than nothing to hear what you're loving. I'm also, if you don't want to support financially, but you are interested in helping out a little bit more, that brings me actually to my next announcement, which is at the same time that I'm working to build up the community for Burlesque Stripped Down, I would also love to start building a Burlesque Stripped Down posse, a nice little team. So I am actually want to put the call out there to anyone listening to this. If you or someone you know would be able to contribute any skills or any time and become part of the Burlesque Stripped Down posse, whether it's as a full-on teammate with, to help me out with some of the admin, some of the social media, some of the editing, scheduling, whatever it is, writing up the show notes, creating transcripts, graphics, some of those more businessy related things, or simply as an ambassador. That's another thing I'd like to start doing as well, which is more just helping out with promotion. You can be an official Burlesque Stripped Down ambassador and kind of help to get the word out there. I would love to bring on people that are really in line with what I'm trying to do with some of my goals for this community, some of the things I have in mind for the future, because to be honest, it's just become too much for me to do by myself right now. So, and that's why things end up kind of on hiatus, is because I can't justify the time financially, and then I get overwhelmed with all of the things I need to do. So if you are interested in joining up, in being part of this posse that I am getting together, I would love to hear from you. Of course, as I mentioned, these are volunteer basis. This is on a volunteer basis at the moment, but I do offer absolutely free publicity for you, your events, your troupe, whatever it may be, your classes. If you need some experience or some mentoring and something that I am an expert in, like social media and branding, I am happy to offer that as well. And of course, we'll be creating this team together, and you'll be in at the get-go. Regardless, if you or someone you know might be interested, let's at least start the conversation. You can head on over to burlesquestrippeddown.com/join the posse, and you'll be able to fill out a little form just to tell me a little bit about yourself and what it is you do, and then we'll jump on a call together and we'll chat about what we can do for this community and how we can make this worldwide burlesque life, this burlesque team, this burlesque community even better. Okay, so those are, two things I would love if you'd like to contribute financially. If you like what I'm doing with the show, if you want to support me, head on over to burlesquestrippeddown.com/support. If you'd like to contribute more of your time and your effort and your energy and your love and your creative vision, then you can head to burlesquestrippeddown.com/join the posse. I want to give a quick shout out because I actually just recently, at the end of September, did have my United States burlesque debut, which was very exciting. I actually hadn't even performed in the States yet. Some of you who have been listening for a long time, you know that I got my start in France, in Paris, with my lovely troupe Burlesque Moulin, who, by the way, is doing some amazing things. So you should check them out at burlesquemoulin.fr and just keep all up with, because they have some great shit going on. But I hadn't performed here in the U.S. yet. 2016 has been an odd year for me as far as performance and things, and I just hadn't felt ready yet. And so I actually responded to a casting for a show called The Tapestry of Temptation up in Gainesville. And it was Jenny Castle and Delicate Flower who brought me up to Gainesville to perform. And it was just an amazing show. It was all based on the 7 deadly sins. And I got to portray 2 of my numbers. I did Envy and Wrath. And I had so much fun. We had a great audience, some amazing people out there. So this is a huge shout out to everyone who was involved with that show, as well as the Market Street Pub, which is where we were. It was really, really fantastic. And so thank you to them for bringing me up there. I'm glad to have made some connections, had a nice little, pool party, go all crazy, all that good stuff. So thank you to them. Thank you to everybody who came out. And if you are ever in the Florida area, definitely check them out. And I think that is about it for my announcements. We are rolling right into the season 0 sex. Okay. As I mentioned, later this week, I should be posting an episode that is kind of a recap of everything from Sex Down South, all of my biggest takeaways, all of the fun that I had, all of the, the contacts that I would love for you to check out more of. So have a look for that. And then next week, in honor of Asexual Awareness Week, I will be having a very special episode with an asexual burlesque performer. So I thought it would be really interesting to bring them on and talk to them a little bit more about how those two things interact, because I think it's something that we don't often think about. So we'll be recording our episode early in the next few days, and I'll be posting it for next Monday. I believe that's the 24th of October, I believe. So have a look out for that, and that should be a really, really interesting, and that's going to launch us right into talking to a whole bunch of other sexuality experts, educators, performers, burlesque people, and all about their sexy lives. Oh my gosh, it's going to be crazy. I love sex and I love burlesque. It's just going to be so amazing. I'd also love to give a quick shout out to a few people who have reached out to me to express their love for the podcast. Peppy Peppadoo left a review over on iTunes, so thank you, Peppy. I also got a great email from Pearly Wink, who told me a little bit about themselves, as well as a couple questions they have. And I will be addressing that and kind of getting back to everybody individually. I haven't had a chance yet, so I apologize, but I will be getting back to you very soon, as well as Shane Reaction, actually right here out of Florida, out of Lakeland. So I will be getting back with all of you, but I just wanted to give you a quick shout out and say thank you so much for reaching out, and expect to hear from me soon. So once again, that kind of wraps us up. Keep an ear open for our next few shows, because they are going to be phenomenal. Let me know of any feedback that you have on the season of sex, on this whole idea of kind of giving myself a little more grace as far as the schedule goes. If you really like a more rigid schedule or twice weekly, let me know that too, because I would really like to kind of base this on what other people are looking for. And if you'd like to support the show, definitely head to burlesquestrippeddown.com/support, where you can pledge as low as $1 a month is the easiest way, anywhere up to however much you decide, however much you'd like to contribute to the show. That'll help me pay for a new microphone, a little bit better setup, as well as my hosting fees, and maybe even start doing some bigger events and some bigger webinars and things like that in the future. If you'd like to contribute to some of those big things, those grand ideas that I have, you can also go to burlesquestrippeddown.com/join the posse, and we'll start the conversation about what I need help with and what you might be able to offer and what I can offer you. So I hope that you are all having a wonderful, wonderful month so far. I cannot believe we are rolling right into Halloween already. Time is just flying by. But it is a good thing, because 2016 is kind of going out with a bang, and pun intended with this whole season of sex. So until I talk to you next time, make sure that you stay sexy.